people may have fears, they may have insecurities. They may think that we members of Altitud that have been doing this for years are way beyond what their capabilities may be. But what I find is that we're helping people to find out that they are way more capable than they ever thought they could be. My name's Harold Weber. My friends all call me Howie. I live in Reading, Pennsylvania, and today I'm going to be talking about a group that two friends and I have formed called Altitud Outdoors. My first experience in climbing wasn't rock climbing. It was when I went out to New Mexico to a scout ranch called Philmont. They have a mountain there called Mount Baldy. It's over 12,000 feet. After that, I really just tucked it in the back of my mind. I went to school for art. I went to a graphic design school in York, Pennsylvania. While I was there, I started going to church, and that's where I met my wife.
My name is Megan Weber. I am a nurse, married to Harold Weber for 26 plus years now.
Soon after I graduated from art school, I got a job and was working in the field, and I supported us while she was still going to school. I got a new job in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, working for a printing company. And from there, that's when things started to pull together with climbing. That's where I met my friend Eric. That's when I got started into climbing. Meg I don't think she was apprehensive at first about me climbing.
I thought, okay, so he got all the gear and he started going climbing.
She did start to get a little bit concerned as I started to go outdoors, and you start to think about everything that could go wrong, and a lot can go wrong.
By mid-afternoon, 25-year-old Harold Weber and his climbing buddy Dane Gamp had almost scaled the peak of High Rocks Park. Then something went terribly wrong.
I was doing a lead climb up in an area called High Rocks, also known as Ralph Stover State Park. Got to the very top of the second pitch, and I was ready to hop over the top, but unfortunately I couldn't. The top of the climb was all dirt and grass, really loose, and there's nothing. I was reaching, and there was nothing for me to grab onto to just pull myself up over the top. Well, I climbed back down the crack, and I got to my last anchor, and I made the mistake of not checking my anchor before I put all my weight on it.
All I remember is I remember looking at the piece and watching it blow out, and I remember starting to fall, and I don't remember anything after that. And then I woke up to my partner trying to assess what kind of state I was in. I
basically did a backward swan dive off the cliff and landed about 40 feet below. I swung down, the next anchor caught me, and I was upside down, and my head hit the rock. Thankfully I was wearing a helmet, but I got myself a concussion, and I was bleeding out of my head. I was knocked out, and my belay man, Dane, he lowered me to the cliff and rappelled down and called for help. Sometime in the late 2005 or 2006, a friend of mine from church approached me, and his name was Scott, and he said, "Hey, I heard you do ice climbing and mountain climbing. Would you mind taking me?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." So I took him, and the very next week that I returned from Mount Washington with Scott, another friend from church came up to me. His name was Mark.
I had overheard Scott telling someone about the experience, and because I had gotten to know Howie a little bit more at the time, I approached him and I says, "Hey, I want to know a little bit about this."
Next year, 2007, "Sure, I'll take you."
I actually grew up in Centerville, Utah. It's about 15 minutes north of Salt Lake. I was mostly into rock rappelling when I was in Utah.
Another friend of mine, Andrew, he jumped in and said, "Hey, would you mind if I went along as well?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Come on, let's go."
Late fall, he got serious with me and told me the gear I needed to buy and all that kind of stuff. And we got geared up, and me, Howie, and Andrew went up, and it was interesting the first year.
Funny thing that happened was The weather that weekend was a bit rainy. It wasn't as cold as we wanted. There was still ice to climb, so we got out ice climbing. But when we were driving back to the site where we were going to set up the tent, Mark just came right out and said, "Look, guys," he said, "I'll drive your sorry butts out there to pitch a tent, but my butt's staying in a hotel tonight."
I love doing all the winter activities, but when my fingers start hurting, I turn into a wimp.
And from that point on, for the remaining years, we always stayed in a hotel or a house. We never stayed in the tent again in Mount Washington. I feel like it wasn't a major shift to go from just climbing myself to leading a group. I've always felt comfortable with determining people's capabilities and being able to come up with an activity that's within those people's gamut of skills.
He's really lucky to have found these guys who all want to be engaged in all these activities and have all these things to do together. It's really nice. It started out really as just being like a guy's getaway once a year to have just a guys' weekend, and that's fine. And whether you make it to the top or not, that's okay.
It's more about what we do as a group, and it's more about having a good time as a group. Some of the key players in Altitud are obviously Mark. He was doing a little bit of some of those ugly mudder runs where it's obstacle courses and runs and various activities.
Dave Bailey is definitely huge into our backpacking. Carlos is our key guy on cycling. Brad is into the climbing, and Nick and Matt also. Those are kind of the key players that we've kind of, as a group, put together as the leaders of those different activities also.
Altitude's involved in, of course, mountaineering. We do backpacking, we do cycling, and we do running. The grandfather of all our trips is the February Mount Washington trip. Every February, we rent a house up in North Conway. For cycling, we typically cycle about every Saturday. This year, we picked up a new event, the American Cancer Society Bike-a-thon, which sees us riding 100 miles from Philadelphia to Atlantic City. Every fall and spring, we have a backpacking trip. Last couple trips we've gone to the Adirondacks. This time we're going down to West Virginia. Running, we've participated in a Zebra 5K, which one of our members puts together to support rare diseases in children.
Where I see Altitud going, my hopes for the group is that they just continue to plug along and stay engaged and active and supporting each other.
The hopes is, and this is what we kind of set Altitud out to be, that we can keep inviting people to try something new, try something that they have never done before, that they are afraid to do.
Staying healthy, staying active, and keeping in touch with each other. It's like you form in a whole nother group of people to have a relationship with.
Altitud recently started a website, and we're on social media, and we're hoping in the near future that we'll be able to start instructional videos to help people get introduced to the outdoors and to get comfortable with taking that step out the door and getting started, not just in Altitud, but getting started in their local community or their local forest or local hikes or local rides.
Our country is full of so many beautiful places to go and see.
By pushing their own limits, they can expand their capabilities.